His face was familiar, even if his name was not. Richard Jaeckel was a fixture in Hollywood, known for playing tough guys in war movies, westerns, police shows, and beachside series with lifeguards. He represented the strength, dependability, and realness that filmmakers admired. Although not a star or a heartthrob, his grounded presence added depth and life to every part he played. For over 50 years, he was a key part of the films and TV shows that shaped American ideas of masculinity. Then, something changed. Slowly, he vanished from the screen, not because of scandal or disgrace, but because of something more painful: silence. Jaeckel's story is one of quiet excellence. He wasn't the type to walk the red carpet with sunglasses and a flashy persona. Instead, he was the soldier in a foxhole, gripping his rifle, making you believe every second he was on screen. From his break in Guadalcanal Diary to notable work in The Dirty Dozen and sometimes A Great Notion, he gave everything he had to each role. Despite his dedication, awards, and even an Oscar nomination, Jaeckel never reached the top tier of fame. Hollywood never aimed to make him a superstar either. For many years, he worked tirelessly. He starred in more than 150 films and TV shows. His focus was on the art, not fame. He didn't chase after Hollywood's fleeting trends or popularity. When the industry moved on, it was simply because his time had run out. When he passed away, there were no big parades or televised tributes, just a quiet farewell. A simple goodbye to a man who helped shape classic American movies and TV. What happened to Richard Jaeckel in his final years is not just shocking, it is very sad. This story isn't about failing, but about strong effort ignored by the world. But that was only the beginning. What came next surprised even his biggest fans. Jaeckel didn't grow up dreaming of Hollywood fame. Born in 1926 in Long Beach, New York, he moved with his family to Los Angeles during his childhood. It was under the famous Hollywood sign that his life took an unexpected turn. He never planned to be an actor. In fact, he was working as a mail boy at 20th Century Fox when things changed. At 17, without acting experience or connections, he landed a part in Guadalcanal Diary, a major war film released in 1943. This role started his career that would last over 50 years. From the start, he stood out. Jaeckel's realness was clear. He wasn't showy or fake. He worked hard. His acting was never over the top, but always impactful. He played characters that felt like they really had fought in battles. Even small roles with him became memorable. His raw energy connected strongly with audiences. Critics and casting agents noticed him. Jaeckel had a gift for making others look good. He was quiet and not flashy. He was simply talented. Underneath his tough look, he was kind, gentle, and loyal. People who worked with him described him as humble and professional. He never tried to steal the scene or act above others. He was on time, did his job well, and treated everyone with respect. But his humility kept him from getting the big breaks. Hollywood loves the bold and self-promoting. While many of his friends chase fame and money, Jaeckel only loved acting. He saw it as a craft, not a way to become famous. That passion showed in every role he played. Whether he was a tough soldier or a town lawman, each character had more depth thanks to him. Still, even with a strong body of work and respect from friends, the spotlight never found him. It seemed Hollywood struggled to figure out how to handle a man who was both tough and sensitive. Over the years, Jaeckel proved he was more than just a reliable supporting actor. He was a fighter on screen and in real life. Soon he would face some of his hardest challenges. By the time the 1960s began, Richard Jaeckel had built a reputation, not as a box office hit, but as a respected character actor who brought depth to every role. Producers trusted him to deliver, no matter how tough the part. His big break came in 1967 with The Dirty Dozen, a gritty World War II film with many top Hollywood stars. Jaeckel stood out among the cast. He wasn't the loudest or flashiest, but he was the most believable. That authenticity was always clear, but Jaeckel's skills weren't just seen in action scenes. In 1971, he gave a strong emotional performance in Sometimes a Great Notion. He played a rough, vulnerable logger, earning him an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. This was a rare moment of praise, but also a sign of possible new opportunities. Still, even with an Oscar nod, bigger roles weren't coming. No big contracts or glamorous parts showed up. Instead, he went back to taking small, serious roles he knew well. It was a tough reminder of how Hollywood viewed actors like Jaeckel. They appreciated his toughness, but rarely gave him awards. Despite all his work and talent, the industry never quite rewarded him properly. As newer, flashy stars took over, Jaeckel's quiet strength was pushed aside. Behind the scenes, it hit him hard. Jaeckel didn't complain. He was a worker first. But those close to him saw moments of frustration. He watched others with less talent, but more charm rise to fame. He saw movies shift away from stories with deep characters toward big effects-driven films. Throughout it all, he kept showing up and doing his work, no matter if his part was small or if he felt far from the spotlight. The battles off-camera were just as tough as those he faced on screen. It was a fight to stay relevant, earn respect, and find meaning. Even if he rarely showed it, those struggles left scars. These scars grew deeper as he moved into the next stage of his career. That phase was marked by persistence, but also quiet sadness because he never gave up. Still, Hollywood was beginning to forget about him. Richard Jaeckel was never one to take a break. While others rested or left the industry altogether, he kept going. From the 1940s to the 1990s, he rarely took more than a few months off without returning to set. Over the years, his list of credits grew to over 150 films and TV shows. Most actors would dream of such a tally. For Jaeckel, it was simply the path he chose. As the industry changed, he adapted. In the 80s and early 90s, he became a familiar face on television. He appeared in shows like Baywatch, Starman, and Spencer for Hire. He wasn't the star, but he often stood out as the best part of each episode. People might not have known his name, but they trusted his presence. When Jaeckel appeared, viewers expected honesty. Beneath his tough work ethic was a man facing fewer options. Hollywood wanted younger, trendier actors. That meant fewer calls for him. His roles shrank to background characters, quick guest spots, or tough guys with little dialogue. No more Oscar-worthy parts for him. Still, he gave each role the same effort and passion he always had. In the early 90s, things started to change. His eyes looked less intense. He missed calls, forgot scripts, and began losing weight. At first, those signs were small, but people around him grew worried. By 1994, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. The diagnosis brought a cruel twist of irony. He couldn't keep working anymore. For a man whose identity was tied to acting, stepping away felt like losing a part of himself. There was no farewell tour, no magazine covers or emotional interviews. His exit from Hollywood was just as quiet as his entrance had been. One day, he was a familiar face on screen. The next, he simply disappeared. That was the start of his real fight. If Hollywood had ignored him at his peak, what came next was even worse. By the mid-1990s, Richard Jaeckel's body was failing him. Still, his spirit stayed strong. After decades of long shoots, tough schedules, and intense performances, his final fight would be the hardest yet. In 1996, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer at age 70. The illness quickly took hold, draining him of the strength he had relied on all his life. His acting career, which had supported him for more than 50 years, suddenly stopped. Just like that, the industry that had used him felt as if he had never been there. The biggest shock came when the money side was revealed. Despite hundreds of credits over his career, Richard Jaeckel had little money saved. His medical bills started piling up fast. His family, already under emotional strain, faced an impossible challenge. That man who had shared screens with legends like John Wayne and Clint Eastwood was now being moved into a home for aging actors who needed help. There were no fundraisers on red carpets or big studio statements. Only silence. That silence was the same one that had surrounded him as his roles dried up and his name faded away. It showed how Hollywood's loyalty often leaves behind the ones who made it. No matter how many films he appeared in, working-class actors can be forgotten when the spotlight turns off. Still, Jaeckel's story didn't end completely in darkness. When fans and old colleagues heard about his struggles, many were shocked. Support came from the ground up. Donations trickled in. Not millions, but enough to help. Some actors he had worked with long ago gave quietly. Friends reached out with small offers of aid. Fans who enjoyed his roles in westerns and war films sent him letters of support. Although he didn't get the big Hollywood ending he deserved, those notes felt real. They reminded everyone that, even if the industry turned away, the audience hadn't. Throughout it all, Jaeckel stayed humble. He never complained publicly or attacked the system that had let him down. If he was angry, he hid it. Instead, he focused on the time he had left, the friends who stood by him, and the work he had already done. But this final chapter raised a hard question. Why did someone who gave so much to Hollywood end up with so little in return? The quietest moment still lay ahead. Richard Jaeckel spent his last days in a simple room at the Motion Picture and Television Fund home in Woodland Hills, California. It was a far cry from the bright lights of movie sets and red carpets that marked his career. He quietly slipped away from an industry that once relied on his face to tell stories. No farewell documentaries aired, and no in memoriam segments were scheduled for prime time. Many barely noticed his passing. The silence was almost too loud. On June 14, 1997, Richard Jaeckel died at age 70. He lost his fight with cancer, facing it with quiet courage. The entertainment world barely made a ripple. A few trade magazines mentioned him. A couple of TV specials paid brief respects. But the media, eager to honor bigger stars, paid little mind to a man who had played over 150 roles. Many of those parts became iconic. His passing felt like a whisper in a loud room, overwhelming and overlooked. Still, those closest to him remember it differently. His sons, Barry and Richard Jr. recall a father who never let bitterness take hold. Even in his last days, he stayed calm and steady, just as he always had. He was not afraid of death. He accepted it with quiet dignity. Though Hollywood forgot him, his family never did. Fans kept his memory alive through reruns and classic films. His death was silent, and his final years followed the same quiet pattern. No scandals, no wild outbursts, no sensational interviews. Just steady, honest work that supported the film industry. The kind of work often unseen, but always important. Some of his former colleagues went on to win many awards and build big careers. They signed multi-million-dollar deals and became legends. Jaeckel left life without a fortune or medals. No huge estate, no fame, just a life of dedication. He gave more than most knew, even if he never received the attention he deserved. He was the quiet force behind many films, always working hard without asking for praise. His calm and steady presence defined him more than any headline ever could. When he passed away, it wasn't in disgrace or scandal, but in pure forgetfulness. For someone dedicated to his craft, that felt especially harsh. Yet, his story isn't finished. What he stood for and what his life revealed about Hollywood's hidden heroes remains something we still think about. When people remember the golden days of American movies, they usually focus on the stars, the famous names, the big box office hits. They forget about those like Richard Jaeckel. Hollywood wouldn't have lasted without people like him. Jaeckel was never the face in ads, but he made those ads meaningful. He added depth to action scenes and brought honesty to war movies. His work made stories more real. He wasn't just an extra in the background, he was the heartbeat behind the scenes. Still, despite all he gave, he was left behind. Not because he lacked talent, but because he didn't chase after fame. He stayed away from Hollywood politics and didn't hire people to shape his image or create headlines with personal stories. Instead, he let his work speak for itself. Sadly, this industry tends to forget those who don't make noise. His quiet dignity became a double-edged sword. His life makes us ask, why do some actors become legends while others slip away unnoticed? Jaeckel spent 50 years acting. He earned an Oscar nomination and worked with many great actors. His peers, directors, and fans admired him. But in the end, his name wasn't on many tribute lists. No Lifetime awards, no re-released films, just a slow fade from view. Still, anyone who saw his work remembers. Those who felt the intensity of his gaze or the truth in his performances won't forget Richard Jaeckel. More importantly, he reminds us that real greatness in Hollywood isn't always about headlines or big box office numbers. Sometimes it's about being consistent, dedicated, and honest. Jaeckel may have died without fame, riches, or awards. Still, he left behind something that lasts much longer. His work continues to hold meaning, and his legacy, though often overlooked, is part of the foundation of American movies. Next time you flip through channels and see him, maybe in a uniform on a horse or facing danger with quiet strength, pause for a moment. That man, whose name many won't remember, was one of the best. Richard Jaeckel didn't need the spotlight to shine. He only needed a camera, and he made every shot count.